You are so beautiful to me. Or rather, you is so beautiful to your audience. You may have heard that the sweetest word in the English language is Y-O-U. That's right, I'm talking about you. So wouldn't it make sense that when you're writing your content, your emails, your posts, your lead magnets, your freebies, your website, even your workshops, doesn't it make sense to always address your audience as you? Well, mostly, but not always. So in this video, I'm going to show you when to use you, when to use we, and when to use they or the third person to create content that connects with your ideal audience. Hi, my name's June Morrow, and I help emerging coaches and transformational consultants step out of isolation and into more authentic connections with messaging that inspires them and their ideal audiences. And if this is you and you're struggling with finding clients, I encourage you to download my free training below, How to Find Clients When Social Media Isn't Doing It For You. As a communications and marketing mentor, my clients share their content with me for review. They do this in the Knockout and they do this in the Authentic Messaging Academy. And something I see again and again is using we or they when a better pronoun to use would be you. Now, here is an example from a productivity coach. When faced with a tough decision, we procrastinate. And this sentence is from an email to her audience talking about her program. So my question for her, my question for you is, who is we? Is we the coach and the reader of this email? Is we everyone in the world? Is we everyone getting this email? Your audience doesn't always know who we is when you're talking about we, so it can be very confusing. Furthermore, we dilutes your message by making it less personal. And when it's less personal, it's less powerful. Less personal, less powerful. So here's a tip. When you write your content, write it to one person. Your soul, S-O-U-L, client, your dream client, the person who has all the problems that you solve and desperately needs your solution and loves your vibe. Speak to that person as if you were speaking to them directly as a friend. If you were speaking to a friend and giving them advice about how not to procrastinate, you typically wouldn't say, we need to do this. You'd say, you need to do this. Now, there are some situations where you might say we, but let's go back to that example from the productivity coach. When faced with a tough decision, you procrastinate. Saying that is going to hit the procrastinator, the person who has the problem she solves, with a stronger punch than saying we procrastinate. Because it's like, yeah, we procrastinate. That's what humans do. No, you procrastinate. It's a problem. Because now it's personal. And to the person reading that who is like, yes, that's me, they're like, yes, tell me more. They want to know more. Now, sometimes people resist using you because they think, well, what if it doesn't describe everyone who reads this content? And if you're thinking that, then you likely don't have a clear enough audience that you're speaking to, or you're trying to speak to too many people in one piece of content. Effective content speaks to one person, your soul client, S-O-U-L, just that one person, right? It's one person who's reading it or consuming it. And if you're worried that people who are reading your content, it's not applicable to them, well, then you need to narrow who you're speaking to down a little bit. And if you're worried about niching or like, crap, I don't know my target audience, this is something we talk about and go into in depth in the Authentic Messaging Academy. And I also have a video coming up on that, which I will link and put above once it's out. Now, once you know your ideal client, your soul client, your dream audience, it's easy to speak to them as you because you know who they are, you know what they want, you've done your research, you've talked to them, right? It's like making a friend. You get to know your friend a little better so that you can help them. When you know your audience, you don't worry about people reading a sentence that says you and thinking, oh no, they're going to think that's not me, because you know those people aren't your dream clients and that your content isn't for them. And here's the thing. Your content isn't going to land with everybody who watches it, and that's okay. You aren't for everyone. You are for specific people who need the specific help with the specific problem that you help them solve. And again, this is something we talk about in the Authentic Messaging Academy, which will help you get a lot clearer on this. So I would say 75% of the time, give or take, speak directly to your audience by addressing them as you. And again, I'm not talking about personal stories because then you're going to use I. But when to use we or they? When to use we? Well, we is a great way to show that you understand your audience because you are a part of a group they belong to. You're like them, right? So here's an example. If your audience is exclusively women, you might say something like, as women, we are taught to put the needs of others ahead of our own, which is something that women are taught. And if this is something that you know your audience has been taught, they would read this and think, yes, she gets me. She knows what it's like to always want to put other people's needs ahead of my own, or to feel bad if I put my own needs first. And of course, you would use we when referring to you plus the other people on your team if it's multiple people who are helping the specific person you are addressing. So use we when you want to show that you're part of the group, that you understand, that you're in that boat too. What about they? What about using the third person, as in they, the people your group audience belongs to, right? So the category, whatever it is. So here's two situations where they is preferable to you. One, when you're telling them that they're doing something wrong that they might be embarrassed about. And I did this earlier in the video when I said, now sometimes people resist using you because they think, well, what if it doesn't describe everyone who reads this content? So I soften the blow to the people this applies to by describing them as people, not finger pointing and saying you're doing it wrong, because if they knew how to do it better, they would. So sometimes using they or people or women or whatever your audience is as a broad category as a way to self-identify is a compassionate way to bring them your content. Which brings me to the second time you want to use the third person, meaning they, people, or groups your audience belongs to. When talking about sensitive issues where the person would be embarrassed if they knew that people knew about it. So this can sometimes come up when talking about money, medical issues, body issues, and a lot of issues around sexuality, right? Things we don't talk about publicly, things that we feel like we should be a certain way with. So I recently watched a video by Teal Swan on why people have sexual fetishes. And in this video, she talks about people in the third person. Although chances are the people watching this video are watching it because they themselves are curious or have a sexual fetish, right? So Teal knows this, and when she created the video, she doesn't refer to anyone in the video as you or talk about your fetish, but she rather talks about people in general who have fetishes. So it softens the blow. It can be like, okay, I'm not gonna really identify with that group, but I'm really curious. So when you're talking about super sensitive areas that people may be reluctant to own up to, use the third person, use people or they or the name of the category of the group, right? Now, of course, with all of this, I'm talking about how to address your audience. Again, if you're telling a story about someone else, a case study, a testimonial, which are really great. You can use, for case studies, use, he, she, they. And of course, if you're telling a story about yourself, you're going to use I. But you always want to come back to you. WIIFM. What's in it for me? That is the most important thing your audience needs to know. And a little trick you can use is ask yourself every time you write your content, what's in this content for my audience? Why would they care? Why would they read this? And then address them in the most direct and compassionate way you can. A way you would connect with a friend. So was this video helpful for you? If it was, give it a like or a love. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. And don't forget to hit subscribe to get instant notification of practical, spiritual, and other ways to use your authentic voice in your marketing and your communications. And remember, you got this.